Hey guys, so we just wanted to pop in here at the beginning really quick before everything happens and say congratulations to Tori.
And a very, very happy wedding day, because this episode today is being released on her wedding day, and I know she's not going to listen today, but she will listen soon. So congratulations, friend. I can't wait to celebrate with you tonight and dance the night away. I promise to feed you water since I know you don't want to get drunk tonight.
We're so happy for you.
So happy, and I'm so excited I get to dance with you tonight. Happy wedding day. We love you.
Congratulations. Hello and welcome back to Through the Trapdoor. I'm Emily.
And I'm Katie.
And this is our podcast where we read you Harry Potter fan fiction.
It's like the first time in a long time that we've recorded while it was still light
I
outside.
know, it's so bright outside.
And it's actually 7:30.
It's so early.
I know, when I left work yesterday at 8:04 because I was not messing around, my store closes at 8, it was still light out. I was thrilled.
So now we should probably actually talk about Harry Potter or
right.
something.
So Mos Morta, last chapter, was real heavy. We saw the end half of Harry's kidnapping by the hands of Lucius Malfoy. And then...
I can't tell if you can hear this.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
But it's fine.
Listen to the sultry sounds of me opening wine.
And then it got real heavy because then Harry was on the back of Lucius's horse as they are gallivanting through the Scottish countryside, and then, what a good pop. And then freaking LaSalle just lets them attack muggles, and they just, Cruciatus cursed them and let them get hit by a goddamn train.
Yeah.
It was real heavy.
It was a hard chapter.
It was hard to read.
It was a hard chapter.
So, thanks for sticking around. And it looks like I don't know how much heavier this chapter is going to be or how unheavy this chapter is going to be. That's so loud because it's so close to the mic.
I'm sorry that our recap included wine noises. So not to change the topic, but it's just what do you think your parents are for their houses?
My mom is a straight up Ravenclaw because she never does anything but open a book. And my dad is straight up a Slytherin because he will do whatever it takes to make it further in his career.
Okay.
But he also will jump out of a plane for no reason, so that's kind of Gryffindor-y.
Yeah.
But I feel like my mom is my dad is a Slytherin and a Ravenclaw. I mean, a Slytherin and a Gryffindor smushed together because he's extremely ambitious, but also a little bit reckless. But my mom will also, hug you when you cry, even though she doesn't want to hug you. Mm-hmm. But will also tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. I feel like both of my parents are a combination of being a Hufflepuff and a Ravenclaw.
I was thinking that exact thing. Not, because I'm the moment I walked into that house, they were very, and then they're yeah, but once you've been here 3 times, your family, get your own crap. And I'm okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. All right, we should probably get back on topic.
Yeah. Probably. Although sorting our parents, that was kind of fun.
That was
I like how I immediately do that. I'm well.
I know. You were ready. You were ready for that question.
I know. It was I didn't even realize that I was ready for that until it was asked.
You were prepared.
I was. All right. Let's get into this. Phoenix Song.
All right. Chapter 19. Phoenix Song. Harry felt numb as he clung on the back of Lucius Malfoy's robes in order to stay on as they cantered across the countryside. The screaming voice of Meg still rang clearly in his mind, along with the terrible ripping of metal as the train had smashed through the small car. His only hope now for this night to be redeemed was for Voldemort to be dead and Dumbledore to triumph when they got to wherever they were going. It seemed as if the moon stood still, as if little time had passed. The horses and riders crashed into a thicket set in a bowl of a valley, and Harry hung on tighter. As they rode through the trees, it seemed more ominous than the forbidden forest. There was dark magic at work. He could feel it. There were no birds, no crickets, just the feeling of hidden eyes watching as they wound through the gnarled branches. Salazar was riding in front with Lucius following close behind. Harry turned around to see a long line of Death Eaters behind him. Their masks still made him shudder. They seemed to be approaching a clearing when a cloaked figure darted out from the bushes and stood in the center of the path. When it moved, Harry got a glimpse of a silver hand. "Salazar," the figure piped up. "What are you doing here with so many of the Dark Lord's Death Eaters, "None of your business, Pettigrew." Salazar sounded disgusted. "What I come to see him about is my business, not yours." He sounded much like an agitated Snape. "Ah, but the Dark Lord is busy. Too busy for you." "Busy, Pettigrew?" It was Lucius this time. "I thought he told you to speak to Salazar with more respect." Pettigrew's beady eyes shifted to Lucius. It was then that Harry realized something. Evidently, Dumbledore had not yet fought Voldemort. "But he's busy all the same, though he may see you, Salazar. He is speaking with your cousin as of..." Pettigrew's eyes had remained on Lucius, despite the fact he was speaking to Salazar. However, he seemed to have noticed Harry. He stopped mid-sentence. "You have brought Harry Potter with you?" Salazar nervously glanced back. "Again, it's none of your business, Pettigrew. However, we shall wait for the Dark Lord to see us when he is ready." Pettigrew's black, rodent-like eyes were darting back and forth between Harry, Lucius, and Salazar. Madly, Harry wondered why Salazar did nothing as Pettigrew retreated into the woods. He was going to give them away. Harry's heart pounded as he thought if there was anything he could do, but it was only a few minutes before Pettigrew returned. "The Dark Lord wishes to see you, Salazar." "Just me?" "No," Pettigrew said in a squeaky voice. "You may all come. Follow me." And they followed after the short, dark figure into the clearing. "My lord," he announced. The light of the moon lit the clearing, and in it stood a solitary, tall, skeleton-thin figure that had hands like white spiders. That is a gross description.
All I can think of is a hand with like 8 long fingers.
Ugh. Facing him was Professor Snape, though his face was hidden by one of those white masks, and what looked to be another Harry Potter. "Salazar seems to be bringing another Harry Potter with him, my lord." All the moisture left Harry's mouth and seemed to come through the palms of his hands as that familiar white face with red eyes turned to him. An odd expression seemed to cross his face as he looked between the two Snapes and Harry's. "What's going on here?" The tone of the voice was quiet but furious. His eyes scanned over all of the mounted Death Eaters next. "Salazar, what is the meaning of this?" Salazar's body seemed to shrink away at the question. Harry glanced over at Dumbledore and Snape. Snape had taken out his wand, and Dumbledore seemed poised, waiting for a reason to give himself away. There was nothing that Harry could do at this moment. Death Eaters surrounded him and had all their attention on him. Salazar slid down his horse and bowed before Voldemort. However, Voldemort just brushed past him and walked over to Harry. "Lucius, is that Harry Potter?" "I believe so, my lord. I took him from Hogwarts this evening. My son, Draco, helped me." Harry could feel Malfoy's body tense. He also hoped that Professor Snape had just heard this line. "Tell me this as well. Why are all of my Death Eaters out and clearly very busy without my knowledge?" He spoke over his shoulder. "Is this your doing, Salazar?" Salazar's voice sounded meek. "Yes, my lord." "Why?" Voldemort withdrew his wand. He was so angry that he didn't let LaSalle get out a word before saying, "No, there's something I want to know first. Tell me, enlighten me, if you will, why there are 2 Harry Potters." I don't know, my lord." LaSalle's voice was shaking. "I don't know. Lucius brought him to me to give to you. I don't know." "You don't know?" Voldemort chewed upon the words. You don't know? Well, I happen to know something that you don't, and something that Severus doesn't appear to understand either. There happens to be only one Harry Potter. Harry looked over to Snape and Dumbledore. They had begun to approach Voldemort. This is an example of why I have power and you don't, because I understand simple things such as this. Now, since there is only one Harry Potter, then one or both of your Harry Potters are not the real Harry Potter. And if one happens to be real, I can guarantee that the one holding the fake Harry Potter will be severely punished. He seemed ready to spit. Voldemort stepped right up to the side of Malfoy's horse and placed his wand under Harry's chin. Now tell me who you are, he spoke softly and close to Harry's face. Harry looked straight into those red eyes and refused to answer. My lord, Lucius suddenly spoke up. If it's Parseltongue you are trying to speak to him, this one understands. I discovered he was a Parselmouth while taking him from the school. He set a snake on my son. Voldemort had been speaking in Parseltongue. Indeed? Voldemort smiled a horrible smile. Well, Salazar, seems you're the lucky one. Your cousin, on the other hand. Who might his guest be? When he turned to look at Severus, he seemed surprised that he had come nearer. Voldemort lowered his wand momentarily. It was then that Harry thought of doing something that he could do, and made his heart pound heavily in his chest at the thought. He had to even this out. Voldemort was at full strength, and now his Death Eaters were at his side. It was an utterly insane plan, but if he acted quickly while Voldemort was still close enough. Glancing briefly over at Dumbledore, who had drawn out a wand, Harry jumped off the back of the horse, landed straight on top of Voldemort, and knocked him to the ground.
Bold.
He was horrible and bony and seemed to be hard to find in his expansive black robes, but Harry managed in finding his wand hand. His scar was burning, and it only became worse as Voldemort placed a hand directly on his scar and seemed to release an energy that caused excruciating pain. But Harry felt the smooth wood of Voldemort's wand, and he gripped it tightly, refusing to allow anything to make him let go. Voldemort was still holding the wand, and he managed to point it directly at Harry. The whole night was blocked out and seemed as if the Death Eaters, Snape, and Dumbledore had all vanished, and it was just he against Voldemort. The pain in his scar seemed almost too much to bear, but somehow, through the blur of his tears, he was able to focus on one thing, and that he was keeping hold of Voldemort's wand. Then he closed his eyes and imagined himself standing near Snape and Dumbledore. Gathering all the strength he could muster, Harry yelled out the spell to disapparate. At the same exact time, a chilling voice cracked in the air. Avada Kedavra! There was a brilliant flash of light, both green and red. The wand burned hot in Harry's hand as the two spells coursed through it at once. It felt as if the wood was about to split, a jarring feeling that caused his scar to hurt worse than he'd ever dreamed imaginable, ripped through him. It ran down his arm, directly into his chest, where it threatened to take his breath away. Just as this happened, there seemed to be another flash of light from behind him, an outside white light, and he found himself being whisked away. His whole body seemed to spin until everything became still and he felt cool forest moss under his head and body. A choking sensation pushed its way up into his throat, and he had to roll over as he threw up. When he moved his hand up to wipe his mouth, he came to realize he was still holding the wand. He forced himself to sit up, and Snape was staring at him, a look of relief nearly coming to his face, then another expression as he saw the wand Harry was holding. Voldemort's face suddenly bore a similar look of surprise. But one of horror as well. Harry realized that the outside spell that had broken whatever magical lock he had been in with Voldemort had come from Dumbledore, and it had seemed that Voldemort now understood that he was a powerful wizard standing before him, and he was without a wand. His red eyes were wide, and his lipless mouth hung slightly ajar. He stared for a moment at his wand in Harry's hand before he turned his attention to the Harry that stood before him. That Harry lifted a wand, an old, worn one that looked as if it had been carved from a piece of driftwood, bleached by the sun. There was a spectacular flash of light, like a star exploding. It was one of the most brilliant things Harry had ever seen, and as it faded, there stood Dumbledore, white beard glistening in the moonlight, and robes of a deep purple shimmering. The wide-eyed expression that had been displayed on Voldemort's face was now twisted. He looked afraid. "Salazar!" he screamed. "Bring me your staff!" LaSalle had taken up a position apart from Voldemort, the Death Eaters, and Dumbledore. At the mention of his name, he seemed to panic, but he abruptly stopped, and instead of running away, his face contorted into a poisonous grin. The staff grew in brightness, just as it had before he killed Fudge, and he pointed it at Voldemort. "Traitor!" Voldemort screeched. "Death Eaters!" In a very undignified way, he seemed to scramble over to Lucius Malfoy. Harry was prepared to watch the death of Voldemort when he came to realize something. Avada Kedavra alone could not kill Voldemort. That is what he, as a baby, had proven. He had to be destroyed another way. And yet, it was doubtful whether Salazar had the knowledge or ability to carry it out. If he did succeed in casting Avada Kedavra, Voldemort may once again be reduced to an invisible wraith and wander for another 10 years before finding a way to return. He had to be stopped now, and Dumbledore had to be the one to do it. Then, quite suddenly, Salazar was knocked off his feet. A giant snake was wrapping itself around his legs. The next few seconds were a blur. Malfoy fell off his horse and yelped as Voldemort pressed one of his fingers into his left arm, then promptly snatched Malfoy's wand and faced Dumbledore. Severus Snape rushed over to Salazar, who had, in a flash of green light from his staff, managed to hold off Nagini. He now stared stunned at a gray-haired woman with no legs that lay in the place of a snake, dead. All the while, the mounted Death Eaters were creating a circle that was fast enclosing Voldemort and Dumbledore. Snape left LaSalle's side and rushed over. "Where are the others?" LaSalle yelled out. "We need to summon the others. We need to send someone for the others." He stood up, staff ready. The others: Moody, Lupin, Sirius. Harry struggled to his feet. This was wrong. Voldemort still had his Death Eaters, and soon there would be more. Someone had to go. Someone had to get the others. Gripping Voldemort's wand, Harry thought of the grounds outside of Hogwarts and tried to disapparate. Nothing happened. He looked at the enchanted woods around him and then remembered the feeling of the strange powers as he had ridden through. He needed to get out of there. Instantly, he spotted Malfoy's loose Magnus mare, and he forced his overtaxed body to run towards the Death Eaters and lunged at the animal's reins. It pitched and screamed before Harry could get a foot in the stirrup and climb up. Once in the saddle, he managed to catch a quick look from Dumbledore, and that was all he needed. It was up to him to get help. He fought briefly with the Magnus mare before spinning it off into the woods. As he disappeared, he knew someone had come to notice he had taken off, and he heard someone shout, "Impedimenta!" But Harry was able to turn and block the jinx. He urged his mount on, though it seemed to be fighting him at nearly every step. But it was good to have the mare, for it seemed to know the way through the woods. He ducked his head low, by the mare to keep his face from being torn by the claw-like branches. As soon as he broke free into a field, Harry found himself confronted with Death Eaters apparating before him, ready to head into the thicket. Again, Harry concentrated on the grounds of Hogwarts and tried to disapparate. Just as he heard some curses being sent his way, he felt himself being pulled away from the scene. The Magnus mare traveled with him. There was no telling how far he had gone, but all that Harry was concerned with, besides feeling relieved at seeing the school, was finding Sirius and Lupin. Just as he was about to dismount and head through the front doors, he spotted a large dark figure moving around the edge of the Forbidden Forest, with a boarhound at its side. Harry galloped across the lawn. "Hagrid!" "Harry?" Hagrid lifted his oil lantern. Immediately he spotted the cut on Harry's chin, and no doubt the Malfoy's mare was suspicious. "What's wrong? What happened?" "They're in trouble. Dumbledore, Snape, where's Sirius and Lupin? I need to find them." "Dumbledore's in trouble?" This made Hagrid panic. "Where is he? Oh God! He's out against—" "I need Sirius and Lupin and some oars," Harry interrupted. "They're at the Ministry. But don't you go. I'm going to—" "There's no time." Harry's whole body was trembling with adrenaline. "The Ministry, where is it? I am going there now." "They're at the minister's house, near Diagon Alley, down Hogmead Avenue, right of Gringotts." "Harry, you can't Harry couldn't stay and have Hagrid help him. There was something strange happening, as if he could sense what was going on back in the clearing, praying that he could apparate such a distance. Harry imagined Diagon Alley as he held Voldemort's wand and disapparated again. The journey wasn't going to be easy this time. It was long, and the spinning was going to be so horrible that he was about to be sick. Yet he could still feel the Magnus mare beneath him, and he worried about flinching. All of him seemed to be coming along, but he didn't know about the horse. He knew Magnus mares were capable of apparating with their wizard riders, but it was loyal to Malfoy, so what if the mare got splinched? All 4 feet of the mare's hooves landed with a clatter on the cobblestones of Diagon Alley. It reared up in frustration of having been taken so far from its master, but Harry was not ready to climb down off its back yet. He didn't know how far the minister's house was, and he'd get there quicker with 4 strong legs under him rather than 2 wobbly ones. He was already fighting the lightheadedness that came before passing out. Gringotts loomed ahead, and Harry forced the mare into a canter, turning right down Hogmead Avenue. The mare's iron shoes were sending out sparks as they pounded the cobblestones. Harry began to pass massive buildings, a library, a wizard's museum, and the very building that housed the Minister of Magic. Then he saw a large mansion. It looked like a Tudor manor he'd find in the countryside. It was gated and had a very surly-looking wizard standing guard. Harry pulled up in front of him. "I need to see the minister immediately." His throat felt raw from the cold night air, and it was burning from stomach acid. "On what business?" The wizard eyed him cautiously, and Harry knew he must look a fright. "On business of Albus Dumbledore," Harry replied. "He has guests here tonight. I need to see them now. Something horrible has happened." The guard's eyes widened as he turned and spoke into a box on the wall behind him. It glowed as he spoke, and he heard Mr. Weasley's voice respond. "Oh, Merlin! Harry Potter! Let him in now!" The guard did just as Mr. Weasley asked, and with a tap of his wand to the lock, the gate swung open. Harry kicked the horse and went galloping up the drive. Then the same strange feeling he had before flooded through his mind. Suddenly, it was as if he could see what was happening back in the clearing. There was a sound ringing in his ears, a beautiful sound that he'd only heard twice before. Once while in the Chamber of Secrets, and the other when he faced Voldemort last. Phoenix Song. A circle of Death Eaters surrounded him. Beyond the circle, he could see a dark figure laying motionless on the ground. Snape. LaSalle stood over him, staff shining a bright blue. Within the circle, standing to face him, was Dumbledore. He was frightening and glorious at the same time. His eyes were blazing with a powerful light, and a whole glow seemed to emanate from his body. But then it began to fade. The light in Dumbledore's eyes dimmed as a look of pain crossed his face. He motioned to grip his left arm, but somehow managed to bring himself to keep his wand steady. "You're too late! You're an old man, Dumbledore, and you're too late." "Harry!" Harry had to shake the image from his mind as several familiar voices called out his name. The mare skidded to a halt before them. A pair of strong hands helped him down from the saddle. When he was placed on the ground, his legs gave way beneath him. The same strong hands carried him inside. He spotted a dragon's tooth dangling as an earring. "Dumbledore!" Harry blurted out. "He's in trouble!" "Trouble?" he heard Lupin's voice. It hinged with worry. "Voldemort's got all his Death Eaters. Dumbledore needs help. It's all gone wrong." He'd gotten his message out. He heard people scrambling around him. Wizards hurrying out the door. He thought he glimpsed Mrs. Weasley's face. This made him feel safe enough to let the darkness that he'd been fighting to overpower him sweep over his eyes.
Good Lord, so much happened in that just last page.
I don't even know.
I got very, you saw me, I was like...
You were super into what was happening.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us on our journey through the trap door.
Please leave us a review on Facebook or iTunes. It would literally mean the world to us.
It really would.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Through the Trapdoor 16 or on Twitter at The Trapdoor.
And please send us an email at throughthetrapdoor16@gmail.com with any story suggestions. And as always, join us again next Saturday as we travel through the trapdoor.